The day the aliens came, humanity was broken. Earth in the year 2147 was a world trying to heal from its third great war. Cities lay in ruins. Billions had died. The survivors were rebuilding slowly, brick by brick, hoping they might finally learn to live in peace with each other. Then the ships appeared in the sky, and everything changed. The Galactic Confederation was old. It had existed for 100,000 years, spreading across 60,000 light-years of space. 400 different species lived under its banner, trading and talking, and sometimes fighting. At its heart sat the Veth Imperium, a race of massive reptilian warriors who had conquered their way to dominance. The Veth kept order through fear. Any species that grew too strong, too proud, or too independent found itself crushed beneath their warships. When the Confederation found Earth, they saw exactly what they expected to see. A primitive species, a broken world, a people who posed no threat to anyone. They offered humanity a place in their great alliance. A small place, a quiet place, the kind of place where you sat in the corner and did not speak unless spoken to. Admiral Nathan Cole was 23 years old when first contact happened. He was an old man now, his hair gray and his face lined with decades of hidden work. He stood at the viewport of Neptune Station, watching Veth warships patrol through human space like they owned it. They did not own it, but they believed they did, and for 300 years, humanity had let them believe. Commander Lisa Grant stood beside him. She was young, only 40, but she carried secrets that would have terrified most officers in any fleet. She had been chosen for this duty because she understood what humanity was really doing, while the galaxy watched and laughed at the primitive apes from Earth. "Another patrol," she said. Her voice was calm, but Cole could hear the anger underneath. "They are getting bolder," let them, Cole replied. He did not turn from the viewport. "Let them think we are still the wounded species they found crawling out of the ashes." Below them, invisible to any Confederation sensor, a network of facilities stretched across the solar system. On Mars, underground cities built warships in absolute secrecy. On the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, factories produced weapons that no alien had ever seen. In the asteroid belt, training bases prepared soldiers for a war that most humans did not even know was coming. Humanity had been busy during its 3E. Centuries of silence. Grant handed Cole a data tablet. The council voted again. They want to push the Veth out of our system. And the president, she is holding the line. But the Veth are making it harder every day. Cole finally turned from the viewport. His eyes were gray and cold, the eyes of a man who had spent his entire life preparing for a single moment. "It is almost time." The Veth grow suspicious. They cannot understand why we never fully joined the Confederation, why we never opened our facilities to their inspectors, why we smile and bow, but never truly submit. They think we are hiding something. We are hiding everything. Deep beneath the red surface of Mars, in tunnels that stretched for hundreds of miles, Director Samuel Perry walked through the greatest secret in human history. The walls around him hummed with energy. Thousands of workers moved through the corridors, each one dedicated to a purpose they had trained for since childhood. Perry stopped at an observation window. Below him, a hangar the size of a city held rows upon rows of warships. They were not like the patrol vessels that humanity showed to the galaxy. These ships were predators. They were dark and angular, built for one purpose and one purpose only: war. His assistant, a young engineer named Kevin Walsh, handed him a report. "The final fleet is complete, sir. 1,200 vessels at this facility alone. And the others?" "Ganymede reports 800. Titan has 600. Europa and the belt stations add another 5,000. Walsh paused, the numbers almost too large to comprehend. "Total fleet strength stands at 8,000 combat-ready ships." Mary nodded slowly. 8,000 ships. The Veth thought humanity had perhaps 24 patrol craft and some orbital defense platforms. They had no idea what was hiding in the dark. "What about the Sentinel platforms?" Perry asked. Walsh lowered his voice, even though they stood in the most secure facility in the solar system. "All 12 are in position, Undetected, fully operational, the Sentinel platforms were humanity's final card. 12 massive structures hidden at the edges of the solar system, each one capable of channeling enough energy to collapse a star. They were not weapons of war. They were weapons of absolute destruction. If any enemy ever tried to destroy Earth, humanity could destroy their homeworld in return. Every homeworld. All of them. At once, it was madness. It was also the only kind of deterrent that worked against empires like the Vet. Perry had dedicated his entire life to this moment. His father had worked on the early designs. His grandfather had been part of the first secret council that decided humanity would never again be at the mercy of forces it could not fight. 4 generations of his family had lived and died keeping this secret. The Veth are going to make a move soon, Perry said. They have been patient, but they are getting nervous. A species that does not fully submit is a species that might become dangerous. Do you think we are ready? Perry looked out at the fleet of warships, at the culmination of 300 years of hidden work. Millions of people had contributed to this project. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, politicians, ordinary workers who built components without knowing what they were building. An entire civilization had kept this secret from the most advanced surveillance technology in the galaxy. We are ready, he said. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for us. Back on Neptune Station, Admiral Cole received a message from Earth. It was coded in a system that no Confederation computer could crack, sent through channels that no alien sensor could detect. The message was simple. The President wanted to meet. The time was coming. Cole read the message twice, then deleted it. He looked out at the Veth warships one last time, watching them cruise through human space with the arrogance of conquerors who had never known defeat. 300 years, he said quietly. 300 years of bowing, of smiling, of pretending to be weak. Grant stood beside him, her reflection ghostly in the viewport glass. Was it worth it? Cole thought about the hidden fleets, the secret weapons, the millions of humans who had worked in silence, passing the great project from generation to generation, never knowing if their children or grandchildren would see it completed. Ask me again when it is over, he said. Ask me when the galaxy learns what we have been hiding. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. They had watched humanity crawl out of its caves, survive its wars, and reach for the sky. They had watched the Confederation arrive and dismiss Earth as just another primitive world. Soon, they would watch something else. Soon, they would watch the universe change. The ultimatum arrived on an ordinary Centaurus. President Maria Santos read it in the Situation Room beneath the White House. Surrounded by the most powerful people on Earth, the holographic text floated in the air above the conference table. Its words polite and diplomatic. Its meaning clear as a knife. Submit or die. The Veth Imperium demanded complete access to all human military facilities. They wanted every ship inspected, every weapon cataloged, every secret revealed. They claimed it was for the safety of the Confederation. They claimed they only wanted to help humanity integrate more fully into galactic society. Everyone in the room knew the truth. The Veth were afraid. After 300 years of watching humanity refuse to fully submit, they had finally decided to force the issue. Secretary of State Daniel Morris was the first to speak. They have positioned a battle fleet at the edge of our system. 40 dreadnoughts. 200 support vessels. They are calling it a security exercise. General Patricia Vance, the highest-ranking military officer on Earth, studied the tactical display with cold eyes. 40 dreadnoughts could crack this planet like an egg. They have enough firepower to sterilize every human colony in the system. They think they do, said a voice from the holographic display at the end of the table. Admiral Nathan Cole was attending from Neptune Station, his image flickering slightly with the distance. His face was calm, almost relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. The Veth believe we have nothing, Cole continued. A few patrol ships, some orbital platforms. They think this'll be easy. A show of force, a few destroyed installations, and the primitive humans will fall in line like everyone else. Santos leaned forward. Admiral, if we activate everything, can we win? The room went silent. This was the question that generations of leaders had asked, never knowing if the answer would ever be tested. Could humanity actually defeat the most powerful military force in the galaxy? Cole did not hesitate. Against what they have brought? Absolutely. We will destroy them so completely that they will not have time to send a distress signal. Against the full might of the Veth Imperium? Paused. That depends on how the rest of the galaxy responds. But we have planned for every scenario. Santos stood and walked to the window. The glass showed a holographic image of space, the Veth fleet hanging at the edge of the solar system like a storm waiting to break. My grandmother was on the first contact team, she said. She was there when the Confederation arrived. She told me something before she died. She said the galaxy was not an alliance. It was a hierarchy. The strong ate the weak, and the only way to survive was to be too dangerous to attack. She turned back to face her advisors. For 300 years, we pretended to be weak. We let them call us primitives. We let them patrol our space and inspect our public facilities and laugh at our backward technology. We did this because we were not ready, and now, Maurice asked. Now we are ready. Santos sat back down, her decision made. General Vance, send the activation codes to all hidden facilities. Admiral Cole, begin positioning our fleets. I want every ship we have ready to fight within 12 hours. What about the ultimatum? Morris asked. Tell the Veth no. Tell them Sol is sovereign territory. Tell them that if they want to see our military capabilities, they can watch from the wrong end of our weapons. The message reached the Veth fleet 6 hours later. Hi, Commander. Dex read the human response in his command chamber aboard the Dreadnought, Eternal Dominion. He was massive, even by Veth standards, his scaled body covered in scars from dozens of battles. He had conquered 11 worlds in his career. He had broken species that had stood for thousands of years. The idea that humans could refuse him was almost funny. They say no, he told his officers, his voice rumbling with amusement. The primitives claim sovereignty. They tell us to leave their system. His tactical officer, a veteran named Kresh, studied his displays with a frown. Hi, Commander. We are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Power sources we have never seen before. Human technology is primitive. Dex dismissed the concern with a wave of his massive hand. Whatever they are activating, it will not matter. Signal the fleet. We advance on Earth in 1 hour. We will teach these apes what happens to species that defy the Imperium. The Veth fleet began to move. 40 dreadnoughts, each one miles long, each one bristling with weapons that could level cities. 200 support ships spread out around them in perfect formation. They had destroyed civilizations with less. On Earth, the final preparations were complete. President Santos stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing every corner of the solar system. The hidden facilities had opened. The secret fleets had launched. 8,000 warships, invisible to every Confederation sensor, were taking their positions. All units report ready, General Vance announced. Sentinel platforms are charging. The Veth have no idea what is coming. Santos nodded. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. This moment had been 300 years in the making. Every sacrifice, every secret, every lie they had told to the galaxy had led to this single point in time. Admiral Cole, she said, you have command of the fleet. When the Veth enter weapons range of our defensive perimeter, show them what we have been hiding. Cole's image flickered on the display. Behind him, through the viewport of his command ship, the darkness of space was filling with human vessels. They were beautiful and terrible, designed for a single purpose. Understood, Madam President, Cole said. Humanity sends its regards. He cut the communication and turned to his bridge crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. Their parents and grandparents had built the ships they now commanded. Their ancestors had dreamed of a day when humanity would no longer have to bow. That day had come. All ships, Cole said, his voice carrying across the fleet through encrypted channels. This is Admiral Cole. For 300 years, we have waited. We have watched. We have prepared. The time for waiting is over. He looked at the tactical display at the Veth fleet approaching, like predators who had never known prey that could fight back.
Yes.
Today the galaxy learns the truth. Today humanity stands firm. And today we show the stars what we have been concealing. The hidden fleets moved into position. The weapons powered up. The trap was set. All that remained was for the Veth to walk into it. High Commander Thex had seen many things in his long career. He had watched worlds burn. He had seen entire species kneel before the might of the Veth Imperium. He had crushed rebellions, conquered empires, spread fear across 1,000 star systems. He had never seen anything like what happened next. The Veth fleet was halfway to Earth when the darkness came alive. Ships appeared out of nothing. Not decloaking, not emerging from faster-than-light travel, simply appearing as if they had always been there and had only now decided to be seen. First 100, then 1,000, then more. Kresh's voice cracked as he read the sensor data. High Commander. 8,000 vessels. 8,000 combat ships surrounding our position. They stared at the display. His massive claws gripped the armrests of his command chair hard enough to leave marks in the metal. The human ships were everywhere. They formed a sphere around his fleet, blocking every direction of escape. They were angular and dark, covered in weapon systems that his computers could not even identify. "That is impossible," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. They had nothing. We watched them for 300 years. They had nothing. The communication system crackled, and a human voice filled the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. "This is Admiral Nathan Cole of the United Earth Defense Fleet." The voice was calm. Pleasant even. The voice of someone who knew he had already won. "You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You have threatened our world and our people. For 300 years, we have watched your empire. We have seen you murder. We have seen you enslave. We have seen what you do to those who show weakness." Alarms began screaming across the Veth fleet. Every ship was being targeted by dozens of human weapons. Targeting locks so precise that they could hit individual systems, individual compartments, individual crew members. "We are not weak," Cole continued. "We have never been weak. We were patient. We were watching. We were waiting for this moment. And now that moment has come." Thex found his voice. "Signal the Imperium. Tell them we are under attack. Tell them to send everything." But Kresh was not listening. His eyes were fixed on his display, his scales turning pale with terror. "High Commander. New contacts. 12 massive energy signatures at the edges of the system." The displays updated. 12 structures appeared, each one the size of a small moon. They hung in space like gods waiting to pass judgment, pulsing with more energy than the Veth had ever seen in one place. "Those are our Sentinel platforms," Cole said, as if he could see the terror on Mex's face. "Each one can collapse a star. We built them as a promise. A promise that if anyone ever tries to destroy our world, we will destroy theirs. All of them. Every homeworld of every species that attacks us." He paused. "We do not want to use them. We hope we never have to. But you should understand what you are facing. You are not fighting a primitive species. You are fighting a civilization that has spent 300 years preparing for this exact moment."
Access mind raced.
The Veth had conquered hundreds of species. They had faced desperate last stands, hidden weapons, secret fleets, but nothing like this. Nothing on this scale. The humans had hidden an entire military civilization right under the Confederation's nose. "You are bluffing," he said, but his voice held no conviction. "You cannot have built all of this in secret, can we not?" Cole's voice held a hint of amusement. "You saw what you expected to see. A broken species. A primitive world. You never asked why we refused to let your inspectors into certain facilities. You never wondered why our official military was so small. You assumed we were weak because we acted weak. We played a role, High Commander. We played it for 300 years, and now the play is over." On the bridge of his command ship, Cole watched the Veth fleet on his tactical display. They were surrounded, outgunned, and completely helpless. In their entire history, the Veth had never faced this situation. Commander Lisa Grant stood beside him. "They are trying to send a message to the Imperium. Let them," Cole said. "I want the entire galaxy to see this." He opened a channel that broadcast on every frequency, to every ship and station and world that could receive it. This was not just about defeating the Veth. This was about sending a message that would change the galaxy forever. To all species of the Confederation, he said, "For too long, you have lived in fear. You have watched the Veth conquer and destroy. You have stayed silent because you believed there was no alternative." He looked at his crew, at the men and women who had inherited a secret that had been passed down for generations. They were the children of engineers and scientists and soldiers who had dreamed of this day, but never lived to see it. There is an alternative. We are that alternative. Humanity stands ready to help any species that wants to be free. We will defend any world that asks for our protection. We will fight any tyrant who threatens the innocent. He paused. The old order is finished. The age of empires is over. And to the Veth specifically, I have one message. On the Eternal Dominion, Dex listened with growing horror. "Surrender now," Cole said. "Power down your weapons. Submit to our escort, and you will live to see another day. Continue this aggression, and we will demonstrate exactly why you should have left us alone." The bridge was silent. Crush and the other officers looked at their calm. Mander, waiting for orders. They were warriors. They had never surrendered in their lives, but they had also never faced certain death. "Hi, Commander," Kresh said quietly. "Our shields cannot stop their weapons. Our engines cannot outrun their ships. We cannot call for help. What do we do?" Dex looked at the human fleet surrounding his ships. He looked at the massive platforms at the edge of the system. He thought about his homeworld, about the billions of Veth who would die if those platforms were ever activated. For the first time in his life, he understood what prey felt like. "Signal the fleet," he said. The words tasted like poison. "All ships power down weapons and surrender to human authority." "Hi, Commander." "Do it." Dex closed his eyes. "The Veth Imperium has never surrendered. But we have also never faced an enemy like this." He opened his eyes and looked at the display one last time. He thought we were the hunters. We were wrong. Across the solar system, the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known lowered its weapons and submitted to the species. It had dismissed as primitives. For 300 years, the long silence was over, and the stars would never forget what they had just witnessed. The video of the Veth's surrender spread across the galaxy like fire. Every world with a communication system saw it. 40 dreadnoughts, the terror of 1,000 star systems, powering down their weapons and being escorted by human ships. High Commander Dex, the conqueror of 11 worlds, sitting across from human diplomats and accepting terms he had no power to refuse. For species that had lived in fear of the Veth for millennia, it was like watching a god bleed. President Maria Santos conducted the negotiations personally. She sat across from Dex in a conference room on Neptune Station, her face calm while his was twisted with barely controlled rage. "Your fleet will leave human space immediately," she said. "All Veth military vessels will withdraw from every system within 50 light-years of Sol. Any violation of this border will be considered an act of war." Dex leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the table. "You cannot dictate terms to the Imperium. We have 1,000 fleets." "We will return with what?" Admiral Cole interrupted. He stood behind Santos, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "We have spent 300 years watching you. We know every fleet deployment. We know every supply line. We know every weakness in your empire." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We have also been sharing that information with every species you have ever oppressed. For the past 6 hours, that data has been spreading across the galaxy." Dex went still. "The Moravi Coalition has already seized 3 of your border systems," Cole continued. "The Hessian Republic is mobilizing its defense fleets. The Krell Syndicate has declared your trade routes closed. The species you terrorized for thousands of years are not afraid anymore. You will destroy the Galactic Order, Thex said. We will destroy your Galactic Order, Santos replied. We will build something better in its place. Negotiations lasted 3 days. When they were finished, the Veth fleet limped out of the solar system under human escort. They carried with them the message that would reshape civilization across 60,000 light-years. Humanity was not weak. Humanity had never been weak. And humanity was now the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. On the Confederation capital world, Ambassador Derek Simmons addressed the Grand Assembly for the first time as an equal. The assembly chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from 400 species. For 300 years, the human delegation had sat in the back, in seats reserved for minor powers. Today, Simmons stood at the central podium, where only the most powerful species were allowed to speak. For too long, this body has tolerated conquest, he said. His voice carried across the chamber, translated into hundreds of languages. You called it maintaining order. You called it the natural way of things. You watched species die and told yourselves there was nothing you could do. The Kasari delegate, an insectoid creature with compound eyes and clicking mandibles, rose to interrupt. The humans presume much. You have won one battle. The Veth will do nothing, Simmons cut him off. Their empire is already crumbling. 3 border systems have fallen in the past week. Their subject species are rising up everywhere. The Veth spent so long being feared that they forgot how to be anything else. He looked around the chamber. At the hundreds of alien representatives watching him with expressions ranging from hope to terror, humanity is offering something new. A genuine alliance. Equal partnership. Mutual defense against any aggressor. He paused. We are also offering a warning. Any species that continues the old ways, conquering and enslaving and destroying, will find us in their path. You threaten us? The Kesari demanded. Promise you. We have spent 300 years mapping every power structure in this galaxy. We know every tyrant, every oppressor, every coward who looked away while the innocent suffered. Simmons let that sink in. The old order is finished. The question is whether you will help build the new one, or be swept aside by it in the weeks that followed. The galaxy transformed faster than anyone had imagined. 12 species immediately allied with humanity. Their ambassadors traveled to Earth to sign treaties of mutual defense and cooperation. These were species that had lived under Veth oppression for generations, waiting for someone to offer them a way out. 30 more open diplomatic channels. Cautiously hopeful about a future where strength did not automatically mean domination. They sent observers to human space, wanting to see for themselves if the rumors were true. The Veth Imperium fractured. Without their military superiority, the fear that had held their empire together evaporated. Subject species that had been conquered centuries ago suddenly remembered their own identities. Rebellions broke out on dozens of worlds. The Khazari, who had been planning to help the Veth carve up human space, found themselves alone and surrounded by species who remembered every cruelty they had committed. They begged for negotiations, for treaties, for any kind of protection. Santos rejected their first 3 offers. Let them remember what fear feels like, she told her advisors. Let them understand that actions have consequences. On Earth, humanity celebrated, but carefully. The parades and festivals were tempered by the knowledge that the hard work was just. Beginning, Santos addressed the United Nations in a speech broadcast. Across the planet, we built our strength in secret. Because we had to, she said. We hid our power because revealing it too soon would have meant our destruction. But power without purpose is just another form of tyranny. She looked out at the representatives of every nation on Earth, the same body that had overseen humanity's darkest hours and its greatest achievement. We did not build 8,000 warships to become conquerors. We built them so that no one could ever conquer us, or anyone else, again. We built them so that the next time a species faces extinction at the hands of an empire, there will be someone strong enough to say no. A voice called out from the crowd. What happens now? Santos smiled. Now we do something much harder than winning a war. Now we prove that we deserve the power we have built. Now we show the galaxy that humans can be trusted with strength. She thought about all the generations that had come before. The first leaders who had decided humanity would never again be helpless. The engineers who had built the first secret facilities. The soldiers who had trained for a war they hoped would never come. The families who had kept the secret, passing it down from parent to child. They had given humanity a chance. Now it was up to the living to make sure that chance meant something. "We have stood firm," Santos said. "Now we must build something worth standing for." The applause began slowly, then grew until it shook the building. Across Earth, across the solar system, across the fledgling alliance that was already beginning to form, humanity looked to the future. They had revealed what they were concealing. Now they would show the galaxy what they truly were. 50 years had passed since the day. Humanity revealed itself to the galaxy. Lisa Grant stood at the memorial on Luna, looking down at the blue and green planet that had once seemed so fragile. She was an old woman now, her hair white and her body bent with age. But her eyes were still sharp, still carrying the memories of the day everything changed. Beside her stood her grandson, Christopher Grant. He wore the uniform of the United Earth Defense Fleet, the same organization she had served for most of her life. He was 25 years old, born into a galaxy that his grandmother had helped reshape. "Is it true?" he asked. "What they teach us at the academy? That you were there when it happened?" Grant smiled. "I was Admiral Cole's second in command. I stood beside him on the bridge when the Veth fleet surrendered." "What was it like?" She thought about the question for a long moment. The memorial gardens were quiet around them, filled with the names of those who had built humanity's hidden strength. Engineers who had spent their lives in underground facilities, scientists who had solved impossible problems, soldiers who had trained for decades for a battle that might never come. "It was terrifying," she said finally. "We had spent 300 years preparing, but we had never actually tested our weapons against the Veth. We did not know if our technology would work. We did not know if the Confederation would unite against us. We did not know if we were about to save humanity or destroy it." Christopher looked surprised. "But you won so easily. Nothing about it was easy. We just made it look that way." Grant touched the memorial wall, her fingers tracing a name carved in stone. Samuel Perry, the director who had overseen the final preparations. He had died a month after the revelation, his heart giving out after a lifetime of carrying the weight of humanity's greatest secret. Every person whose name is on this wall gave their life to that moment. Most of them never saw it. They worked and sacrificed and died, believing that someday, somehow, their children or grandchildren would benefit from what they built. She turned to face her grandson. "That is what made us different from the Veth. They conquered because they wanted power. We built because we wanted to survive. We hid because we knew that showing our strength too soon would mean our destruction. Every decision we made was about the long game, about the future we might never see." Christopher looked out at the stars. From Luna, the galaxy stretched across the sky like a river of light. Somewhere out there, the human alliance had grown to include over 100 species. The Veth Imperium was a memory. The Kasari had been reduced to a minor power begging for trade agreements. The galaxy had changed in ways that would have seemed impossible 50 years ago. "My classmates at the academy worry sometimes," he said. "We are the first generation that has never known fear. We have never lived under the shadow of the Veth. We have never had to hide who we are. Does that worry you? It makes me wonder if we will forget. If we will become soft, like the Confederation was before we woke them up?" Grant nodded slowly. This was a concern she shared. Power was easy to build, but easy to lose. The skills that had saved humanity, the patience and discipline and long-term thinking, were hard to maintain when there was no immediate threat. "That is why we have this memorial," she said. "That is why we teach history. That is why your academy exists. Not just to train soldiers, but to remember why we built all of this in the first place." She gestured at the wall of names. These people did not sacrifice so that we could become conquerors. They sacrificed so that we could become protectors. The galaxy has enough species that use their strength to dominate others. We were supposed to be different. Are we different? Grant was quiet for a moment. She thought about the alliance humanity had built, about the species they had protected, the tyrants they had stopped, the refugees they had sheltered. She thought about the mistakes they had made too, the times they had been too aggressive or too cautious or too slow to act. We try to be, she said. Every generation has to make that choice fresh. Power does not come with instructions. You have to decide every day what kind of people you want to be. Christopher nodded. He looked young in his uniform, young and hopeful, and just a little uncertain. Grant remembered feeling the same way at his age, before she learned how heavy the weight of responsibility could be. The stars remember what we concealed, she said. They saw us pretend to be weak for 3 centuries. They saw us reveal our true strength when the moment came. But what matters is not the secret we kept. What matters is what we did with our power once we had it. She took her grandson's arm, and they began walking back toward the transport station. Your great-great-grandmother was part of the original project. She designed some of the first hidden facilities. She died never knowing if any of it would matter. Your grandfather helped build the Sentinel platforms. He lived long enough to see them ensure peace, but not long enough to see the Alliance grow. And you. Grant smiled. I lived long enough to see a generation that has never known conquest. I lived long enough to see humans and aliens working together because they want to, not because they are afraid. I lived long enough to know that all those sacrifices were worth something. They reached the transport and stopped. Below them, Earth turned slowly, blue oceans and green continents visible through breaks in the clouds. It was still beautiful, still fragile-looking, still the home that humanity had fought so hard to protect. The most important thing we concealed was not our weapons, Grant said. It was our patience, our ability to wait for the right moment, our willingness to play weak while building strength. She looked at her grandson, at the future of everything her generation had built. The stars learned what we were hiding. But the real lesson was not about technology or fleets or weapons platforms. The real lesson was that a species willing to sacrifice pride for survival, willing to think in generations instead of years, willing to stay silent until the moment was right, that kind of species can change the universe. Christopher straightened in his uniform. I understand, grandmother. I know you do. She smiled and touched his cheek. That is why I'm not worried about the future. Because you and your generation understand what matters. You know that power is not the goal. Power is the tool. The goal is making sure that no one ever has to hide again. The transport doors opened, and they stepped inside. Behind them, the memorial stood silent under the stars, holding the names of all those who had given everything so that humanity could stand firm when the moment came. The galaxy had learned what humanity was concealing. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned what humanity truly was, and the stars would remember forever.